tonight, the best-selling author of The God Delusion. His new book is a memoir called An Appetite for Wonder, The Making of a Scientist. Please welcome to the program, Richard Dawkins. So there's a very liberal Presbyterian pastor in my audience. We'll get to this. And when I say liberal, here's how liberal he is. He's Jewish. So, for better or for worse, you seem to be the avatar for the dividing line of the incompatibility of religious belief and scientific belief. Somehow you have, through maybe your words...
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
So his question was, can you let Richard Dawkins know that there are religious individuals with a strong belief in God who also believe quite strongly in the scientific method? Does that seem incongruous to you?
No, I'm well aware of that, and I quite often...
Oh, what did I tell you? He says, ask him if he's aware of that, and I go, I'm pretty sure he's aware of that.
It's a point I often make, and I often join forces with bishops and other friends to combat the anti-scientific tendency of fundamentalist religion. It's one of the great fallacies among fundamentalists that they think all religious people are like them, and they're not.
That's exactly right. There's a certain rigidity to it. Now, here's my proposal for the question for the discussion tonight. Do you believe that the end of our civilization will be through religious strife or scientific advancement? What do you think will, in the long term, be more damaging to our prospects as a human race?
The Astronomer Royal Martin Rees and President of the Royal Society gives humanity a 50% chance of surviving through the 21st century. And
wait, hold on, I got to do some math. Oh,
and one
fine.
One of the reasons is he fears that the fruits of scientific advance, the bad fruits, things like dirty bombs, things like biological warfare, could get into the hands of religious fanatics who, unlike all other terrorists, actually want to die. I mean, they want to go to paradise at a martyr's death. And so the question you ask, the answer is probably both, that science provides, in the form of technology, weapons which hitherto have been only available to reasonably responsible governments are likely to become available to nutcases who believe that their God requires them to wreak havoc and destruction.
Doesn't it, though, let scientists off the hook to some extent? To suggest that their work could only be misused by those whose minds are boggled by religious fanaticism, when in fact, isn't there a strong probability that we are not necessarily in control of the unintended consequences of our scientific advancement?
That's right.
I'm not suggesting to ever stop it, but don't you think it's even possibly more likely that we will create something that the unintended consequence of it is worldwide catastrophe?
That is possible, and it's something we have to worry about. The precautionary principle, I think, is very important. Science is the most powerful way to do whatever it is you want to do, and if you want to do good, it's the most powerful way of doing good.
Yes.
If you want to do evil, it's the most powerful way to do evil.
And it seems to provide us, for every scientific advance, there is, I guess it would be what is the third law of thermodynamics? For every equal action, there's an opposite reaction.
That's what Newton's,
So you have nuclear energy, you split an atom, you go this way and you can light the world. You go this way and you can blow up the world. And it seems like we always try this part first.
Well, there is a suggestion that one of the reasons why we don't detect extraterrestrial civilizations is that when a civilization reaches the point where it's capable of broadcasting radio waves that we could pick up, there's only a brief window before it blows itself up. That there's a brief window between discovering the advanced technology to communicate by radio, which we could then pick up, and producing the horrific technology, which then gets out of control.
Right.
So it may be that all over the universe there are little civilizations winking into action, briefly, flashing into action for a few centuries, and then killing themselves. And so,
why do you think it only takes them a few centuries? And does that make us stupid?
Oh, no, that's just a speculation.
So you feel like we are low achieving when it comes to destroying ourselves?
Not at all. The point is that it takes many billions of years for evolution to reach the point where technology takes off.
Right.
But once technology takes off, it's then an eye blink by the standards of geological time.
I see.
Before, according to this rather pessimistic speculation, I'm not forwarding it myself.
At this point, the only speculation I've heard from you is somewhat pessimistic. I guess that's the point is, I think that it's very easy to look at the dark side of fundamentalism and the damage that it can do. Sometimes I think we have to challenge ourselves and look at the dark side of achievement and the dark side of, because I believe that the final words man utters on this earth will be, it worked. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be an experiment that isn't misused, but will be a rolling catastrophe.
Yeah, it's a possibility, and I can't.
Pretty good possibility.
I can't deny it.
What do they do?
I am more optimistic actually than that.
About science?
Yes.
In terms of its ability to control its, curiosity killed the cat, and the cat never saw it coming.
That's true.
So how do we do that? How do we try to put the brakes on our own ability to achieve or our curiosity?
I don't think you can ever really stop the march of science in the sense of saying you're forbidden to exercise your natural curiosity in science. You can certainly put the brakes on certain applications. You could certainly stop manufacturing certain weapons. You could have an international agreement, difficult to achieve, but it's been done to some extent, international agreements not to manufacture certain kinds of weapons, destroy the stocks.
We do have certain things in place like that, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
Do you think it's difficult for people to bridge the gap between what they need from religion? And I think there must be, if you're someone that believes that we are individual genes that are all fighting for their own survival. I think that's the theory of your second book.
Well, I wouldn't put it quite like that.
No, because I'm stupid. You're like a genius guy. But how would you put it?
Natural selection working at the level of the genes has put our bodies here and our brains here, but our brains are capable of taking off and departing from, cutting ourselves adrift from the dark side of our Darwinian heritage, and it can be dark. So you don't have to be pessimistic and say, oh, we are only machines for our genes. We rise above that. We've got big brains, we've got culture, we've got art, we've got music, we've got poetry, we've got science. We've left behind the wild world in which our genes were naturally selected.
Do you believe that religion goes in the same category as some of those, or faith, let's say, goes in the category of some of those more positive? You clearly place a positive value on poetry, on art, on music. Couldn't faith be in that category
it belongs in that category in the sense that it is a product of human brains, yes, but I'm not sure it belongs in that category in the positive sense. I don't think faith is positive, because faith means belief without evidence, and you shouldn't believe anything without evidence. And it's all too common, and people who are brought up to say, I believe it because I believe it, it's just my faith, are not allowed to challenge it, then a minority of those people are going to be seduced into doing terrible things because you can't argue with them. You can't argue with faith. You can't say...
But I guess my point is, then there is an evolutionary defect in our brains that allows us to be manipulated, and whether it be through... If that is the pathological version of religion, wouldn't that be the pathological version of statism or patriotism, or
I think so. Yes.
Being a fan of a baseball team? Yeah. I've seen people do things at a football stadium.
Yes, that's a good point, and I think there are other things that...
Sorry, could you just say that's a good point again for the cameras?
That's a good point.
No, but that's... Is faith, if it brings comfort to people and causes them to behave morally and to engage in charitable causes, I don't know, those seem like very positive outcomes, and it seems like a lot of religion is centered around that.
Well, let's take those one by one. Brings comfort. It may very well bring comfort. If you're afraid of dying, it might well bring comfort. Doesn't make it true.
But that's not an insane thing to be afraid of.
No, indeed not.
And we are the only animal. I mean,
no,
I've seen cows.
I agree.
Boy, you knock one out, and the other one just walks right up to you like, hey, what was that? You know, like...
Yeah. No, I wasn't saying it's insane at all. That's the point. It gives you comfort, but it's illogical to say because it gives you comfort, therefore it's true.
Right. So where do we go when we die?
Bertrand Russell, well...
so you don't know?
Well, we either get buried or cremated, or we give our bodies to science. Bertrand Russell said...
Isn't that... You actually don't know what happens to us.
I don't know what happens to us, but I know that our consciousness is wrapped up in our brains. I know that our brains rot. There doesn't seem to be any reason other than wishful thinking.
Right, but there's a possibility.
Well, there's a possibility for all sorts of things, but it's...
But isn't the job of a scientist in some ways to have faith that there's something out there that we don't understand yet? And maybe evolutionary dynamics, the loss of faith, wouldn't that steal something essentially human from scientific pursuit?
I think you might be confusing two sorts of faith.
I'm sure I am.
There's you can have faith that, as you said, that there's something more for us to understand. I wouldn't call that faith. I think it's quite clear. There's a lot more that we have to understand. You could have faith in the scientific method. You can have faith in your wife or your husband, all sorts of things like that. But those are based on evidence, whereas faith per se is not. Faith in religion is faith is faith is faith. It's not based on evidence. That's why it's called faith.
Right. When you say that there's evidence that there's something more out there, you mean just because there are unknown things that we're always discovering?
Physics is clearly incomplete. I mean, physics doesn't yet know how the universe works.
Right.
Gone a long way in that direction, but it's still got a long way to go.
What if, you know, with the idea, because I think I'm sort of fascinated by the idea that faith and science are incompatible. I believe in the scientific method, but I know that faith and science are both controlled by the same flawed mechanism, which is us.
I think when you say you believe in the scientific method, you believe in the scientific method because it works. And,
yes,
and it's worked over and over again.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is I don't necessarily believe in the people who operate the scientific method. In other words, the scientific method, you say it works, but it's been wrong. And it's been
wrong, and that's one of the glories of it, that it learns from its mistakes.
Right.
I mean, science progresses by rejecting hypotheses that have failed.
Do you think it's more logical that you believe that after you die, it all ends, or that there's something else there? Do you believe that faith, that maybe not a particular faith, like we get white wings and we move towards a light, and your grandmother's there with pie. Like, not specific faith, but the idea of something beyond our understanding exists for us is almost a more logical conclusion than we are cremated and rot.
Something beyond us, that I believe, there's something beyond us, there's something we don't many things we don't understand.
Right.
But the particular thing of surviving your own death, palpable wishful thinking, goes against everything we understand about how the nervous system works. We are evolved creatures, we are apes, we are African apes.
Right.
If you want to believe that you survive death, or that humans do, when did it start in evolution, all that sort of question.
Sure.
It really doesn't make logical sense.
This is so cool to think about.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to get high later? But my point is, I guess what I'm saying is I don't have antipathy towards the religious. And I'm now getting the sense from you that you don't, although I've read some things that you've said where I think you might.
No, I think I do, actually.
Oh, you do? All right. Really?
Not to every religious individual, certainly not. I mean, some of my best friends are religious.
Right. All right. But you're saying that it's as a construct.
Yeah.
You don't care for it.
No, I think it's destructive of the human intellect.
But it's done some good. How about
Not
this?
much.
What do you think of nation? Do you think of nation states as more destructive than religion? Or
It could be. I mean, patriotism is a very
about
destructive.
the same.
Yeah.
Okay. So the isms.
Yeah, very destructive force. I think we have to construct our own morality, and it's quite a difficult thing to do. As the decades go by, we get better at it. I mean, we're a lot more moral now than we were 500 years ago, or even 100 years ago.
No, I think that's. I don't know that that's okay. I just think there's YouTube, so now we know what other people are doing to each other. And how cute their cats are. You see, here's what's crazy. You talk about this stuff every day your whole life, so it's not that interesting to you. But I got to tell you, man, I find this stuff truly fascinating.
Of course it's fascinating.
It's really fascinating. It gets to the heart of everything. I have long believed there's nothing wrong with religion as long as it's not coercive in any way. I've always felt that it brings a great deal of positive into the world as well. But I also feel like, it can't be that either, God with his finger said, I will bring life to this bathroom mold, or that we just got luckier than other bathroom mold. There must be something in between those two things of pure statistical probability and divine intervention.
Yeah.
That you don't buy that. An Appetite for Wonder is on the bookshelf now.